What's going on, everybody? My absence has been, well, unexpected. I have not done the last couple of weeks of This Week in Wrestling. For that, I apologize. There's been quite a bit going on, but I'm here now. TNA Bound for Glory 2012 is coming up here in about 4 hours, maybe 5. And so I had to get in this predictions segment because, well, it's the biggest pay-per-view of the year for TNA, and I felt I owed it to you. UnderTheWire85 is where you can find these. This Week in Wrestling, which I will start back up again next week. There's even a new television show for WWE that I have to talk about that I can't even watch. Main event on the Ion Television Network, which apparently has had 2 very good inaugural shows, and apparently I don't get it. So I have to talk about that. Raw, SmackDown, Impact, all that good stuff. It just hasn't happened. Work and a bunch of other crap. So, TNA, Bound for Glory, 2012 predictions page here, UnderTheWire85 here on YouTube. I will go through each of the matches as soon as I get this out of the way here. There we go. There are 8 matches on the card. I will go by when they were made. It's not least important to most important. It's simply just when they were made to the pay-per-view, since some of them were literally made last Thursday on Impact. So if you see me going and looking down like this, it's because I have to look at the matches, because literally some of them were made just on Thursday. We start with an X Division title match, which happened last week on Impact because Zema Ion came out and said, there's nobody in the back that I have yet to challenge that I can't, injure. Rob Van Dam's music hits, and we see a small little interchange between Zema Ion and Rob Van Dam, and Rob Van Dam says, I don't have an opponent for Sunday. So Zema Ion is, Rob Van Dam is challenging Zema Ion for the TNA X Division Championship. Do you have any idea how happy I am that this is happening? As I said before, this was probably 2 or 3 episodes ago, throwing different styles of wrestlers at Zema Ion is a very good idea. My fear is that this is going to be an out for RVD to have some time off, even though he really hasn't been on television very much, because Zema Ion's gimmick is, I wrestle you, I injure you. So, is this a side that says Rob Van Dam is going to be out for a while, or maybe he's just going to be taking a break, or something like that? Or is this a time to put Rob Van Dam back on television on a more permanent basis? And the easiest way to do that would be to have him be the X Division champion. It's not the television title, even though the X Division title is more prestigious than the television title. Television title is supposed to be on TV, X Division, a couple times, and then at the pay-per-view. But it's the X Division title. This would be a good chance to make Rob Van Dam relevant and give him a belt that, quite frankly, it doesn't need some luster, but I don't know if Zema Ion's as over as they want him to be. But it should be a fantastic match. With this card I see in front of me, it's probably going to be the first match on the card. I say that because I don't think they're going to start with the tag titles, because you got 3 really good teams, and I don't think they're going to start with the television title, because at a pay-per-view, you need to start with a bang. And even though the television title could be a good match, I think if you want to start out the show, and normally I'm critical of TNA for starting with the X Division title every pay-per-view, but in this case, I kind of hope it happens, because these 2 will put on a good match. I do think Rob Van Dam is going to do most of the work. I'm not saying Zema Ion's not going, or I'm sorry, I had that backwards. Zema Ion's going to do most of the work. The question is, will Rob Van Dam put him over? Well, again, if you're all about the young initiative, then yeah, Rob Van Dam would put him over. The problem is, if you do that, then Rob Van Dam disappears for months, because he's that badly injured by Zema Ion. I'm going to go on a limb and say that Zema Ion wins because he gets himself disqualified. So Rob Van Dam will win the match, but he won't win the title. So my prediction is that Rob Van Dam wins via disqualification, and Zema Ion retains the X Division title and maybe builds this for one more pay-per-view where then Rob Van Dam can take the belt off of him. I know you don't want a disqualification at a pay-per-view, but given the circumstances, I'm going to say it's disqualification. It's bold, but I think this has the potential to be a great feud, but I don't want it to end at this pay-per-view. And I think if Rob Van Dam wins the title, you can have Zema Ion have a return match, and then it's over. If you have Rob Van Dam get screwed out of it, I think you can build it for another month. Rob Van Dam chasing Zema Ion for one more month, and then have Rob Van Dam win the title. Second match on the card, as I look over here, the television title, which was made literally moments before Impact went off the air, essentially. Magnus will be challenging Samoa Joe for the television title. This makes a ton of sense because, well, the four guys that Hogan had in a room were Samoa Joe, Mr. Anderson, Magnus, and Garrett Bischoff. Well, Mr. Anderson is injured by the Aces and Eights. So you can't really just have him show up and challenge for a belt, especially since that would be a face versus a face here. So, Magnus challenges Samoa Joe. I am happy to see Magnus cut promos because he's gotten better at it. As much as I said I liked the British Invasion a couple of weeks ago, Doug Williams is now hurt. And Robbie T has a really good thing going with Robbie E, which maybe Robbie E needs to get back into the mid-card belt discussion again. X Division, TV title, something like that. Magnus and Samoa Joe will put on a good match. They have very differing styles, but they both know how to put together a good match. The last Samoa Joe match I watched at a pay-per-view, he faced Jeff Hardy. That's a very tough match for both of them, because even though Jeff Hardy is used to fighting guys that, have completely different styles from him, Samoa Joe is not used to having a guy like Jeff Hardy wrestle against him. He's just not. So it affected the match to some extent. Magnus is going to be a fighter, and Samoa Joe is just going to use, brute force. And I think they're both going to cut great promos at the pay-per-view. By the way, Grand Canyon University hosting this, and I will get to what's also happening at that event. So Phoenix, it's a big deal for TNA, by the way. So I think they'll both cut great promos in Phoenix and have a fantastic match. There's really no reason to take Samoa Joe off the title. There just isn't. So with that said, I pick Samoa Joe to retain his television title. Maybe have Magnus have a rematch, or maybe just start sifting through guys again. But let's keep Magnus relevant. So let's have it be a really good match, which maybe we get another rematch at the next pay-per-view, or perhaps he gets into some other feud that makes sense. Although a feud with Samoa Joe makes a ton of sense right now. So I picked Samoa Joe to retain the television title. Then there's what one of my friends called the most hyped match of the pay-per-view, which to some extent I kind of agree. At other extents, the main event I think has been a little more hyped. Joey Ryan versus Al Snow. Essentially the stipulation here is that if Joey Ryan wins, he gets a contract with TNA. If he loses, he's done. Because he got a one-day contract to fight Al Snow. That was the whole Al Snow being appeasing to Joey Ryan after he slapped him in the middle of a ring after Joey Ryan threw water on him, punched him, all those type of things. So if Joey Ryan wins, he gets a contract. If Al Snow wins, Joey Ryan's gone. This one's very easy to call. If you recall, anytime you have a guy that is on a show where he has to prove himself and all that stuff, and then he just randomly appears again, they have plans for that guy. Joey Ryan has been running on the 87% of the fans wanted me to stay, and I believe 2 of the 3 judges said no when they voted for him. I think Al Snow's the only one that voted him yes, which is probably why they did this. Especially also since I'm pretty sure Taz can't really wrestle these days, plus that'd be a weird match. So, Joey Ryan, Al Snow is the match. I expect Joey Ryan to really show off his skills in this match. I think Al Snow's going to have him beat at some point, and he's not going to take advantage of it, and Joey Ryan's going to get a very cheap win, and he's going to get a contract. So I pick Joey Ryan to be on the active TNA roster before the night is over. Congrats, because I want to really see it in the ring, because he had a heck of a match with Austin Aries for his gut check. That was back when Austin Aries was X Division champion. That's another thing that companies do. For instance, who did the WWE place Daniel Bryan against in his first match? I think it was Chris Jericho. And they had big plans for him. And look where Daniel Bryan is. I'm not saying Joey Ryan is the Daniel Bryan of the TNA brand, but he could be another jolt of excitement that that company sorely needs. So I picked Joey Ryan. Then we have the Aces and Eights versus Bully Ray and Sting. This goes back to Hulk Hogan and Sting getting kidnapped and then talked to by the supposed leader of Aces and Eights saying, alright, we'll get 2 guys, you get 2 guys. Well, they basically, one of their stipulations was that Hulk Hogan couldn't wrestle in the match. Why would you not want Hulk Hogan wrestling in the match? Oh wait, because it's Hulk Hogan. Yeah, he was too busy making a sex tape, apparently, that he didn't know about. Right. So Sting is allowed to wrestle in the match. He's, in his 50s. Hulk Hogan is almost in his 60s. I realize Sting's in better shape, but come on. 2 guys to represent your company, and you pick Sting. By the way, before I get into this match, TNA Hall of Fame inaugural placing is for Sting. That's going to happen. That either happened Saturday night, or it's happening before the show, or at some point during the show. I don't know what, but congratulations to Sting. Your gimmick is you never went to WWE. Congratulations. So this is essentially you getting into the WCW Hall of Fame without getting into the WCW Hall of Fame. There you go. So, since it can't be Hulk Hogan, they have to find somebody, right? So, with that said, they initially pick Mr. Anderson. Because, he's not doing anything, so let's just put him in a high-profile match. He gets beat up by Aces and Eights, so now we have Bully Ray. Now, there are one of 2 ways to look at this. The first way is, this is a clear, I hate to use the word screw job here, but I will. This has a clear marking for Bully Ray turning back heel, even though he's not really a face, and joining the Aces of Eights to completely annihilate Sting. And then Aces and Eights run wild, and that's what happens. That seems too obvious. I'll tell you why. I can agree that Bully Ray's going to be a heel. And I agree that this leads up to Bully Ray being relevant if he's a part of Aces and Eights. I'm going to go a different route with this. By the way, the Aces and Eights members haven't been revealed, and they're probably not going to be. It's probably going to be, what's-his-face, Luke Gallows. And a guy they've had on television a ton is Wes Briscoe. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's either going to be Luke Gallows and Wes Briscoe, or it's going to be Luke Gallows and somebody like Matt Morgan or somebody like that. because that's the rumor of who it is. Quite frankly, I really do think the only way this match can happen is if the Aces and Eights win. Because you've got all this influx of talent, you want the Aces and Eights to be relevant. They're not like Immortal, where they've been, visible. And I think if you want to bring a bunch of guys into the fold and have it be a faction, and have it be long-term, I think the Aces and Eights have to win. Here's a good way to do it. Bully Ray costs his team the match without meaning to cost his team the match. And then Sting and Bully Ray can feud against each other. There you go. So Bully Ray loses the match, but Sting and Hulk Hogan during the match, they think Bully Ray lost to help the Aces and Eights, and then accuse him of being the Aces and Eights for a while. And Bully Ray won't be a part of that, which then you'll have to find him to be relevant somehow. So Aces and Eights win, and maybe it sets up a feud between Sting and Bully Ray. Tara challenging Miss Tessmacher for the Knockouts Championship. I think this is about the third or fourth time we've seen this match. Every match has been decent. Tara's had to really cover for the match. I thought this was going to be Gail Kim versus Miss Tessmacher, but maybe Gail Kim is too busy guest hosting a cooking show with her husband. I don't know. Maybe she'll get involved in the match. I don't know. But it's a feud. Part of me says you keep the belt on Miss Tessmacher and have her start beating other people, like Gail Kim. Because I really don't see a ton to the point of putting Tara back on the belt, except that she would then feud with Brooke Hogan even more. Which, by the way, this whole we can't call Brooke Tessmacher anymore because we have Brooke Hogan in the company. Whatever. The Hollywood boyfriend thing is probably just a joke. It's probably like Madison Rain or some crap like that that's helping her out. I don't know. I'm going to pick Miss Tessmacher to retain the belts here. Or belts. The belt. The Knockouts Championship. I'm going to have her retain. Then we have... actually, I am going to go one out of order here. Tag team title match. AJ Styles and Kurt Angle, Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez, both of those teams challenging the World Tag Team Champions of the world, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian. This has the potential to be match of the night, simply because all 6 of these guys can wrestle. These next 3 matches are really hard to pick, simply because I don't know which way they're going to go. It makes sense for Daniels and Kaz to drop the belts. It really does. I'm not a huge AJ Styles as a tag champion fan. I also find it ironic that Kurt Angle comes out and wears a shirt that says wrestling is not a team sport, and then he gets into a tag team title feud. And then Chavo and Hernandez could have a nice run as tag team champions for a while. They would literally be LAX part... Actually, would that be LAX part 3? Yes, it would. Because LAX Part 1 had Conan, LAX Part 2 had crazy vampire chick from the WWE that I can't remember her name. She was with Kevin Thorne. I forget her name. That was Part 2. And both of those were with Homicide and Hernandez. Now Homicide works for Ring of Honor or whatever company he works for. I think it's Ring of Honor. And this time now it's Chavo and Hernandez. But the World Tag Team Champions of the World, very entertaining here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Chavo and Hernandez win the tag team titles. Kurt Angle and AJ Styles, I think they need to feud again. That would be awesome, because they would put on a good program together. I don't know who you'd make heel, though. Probably Kurt Angle. And then you can have a rematch by the World Tag Team Champions of the World, and then do something with them. So Chavo and Hernandez, I'm picking to win the TNA World Tag Team Championships. Bobby Roode versus James Storm with King Mo as the special ring enforcer, or special enforcer for the street fight. Now, this feud has been going for a year, basically, in and out. Bobby Roode was champion, James Storm came back. Bobby Roode ruined his chance to win the world title. Bobby Roode's been getting over on James Storm quite a bit. So if you really want to end this feud, because it's a street fight, if you want to end it, I think James Storm has to win this match. This could be the longest match on the card. The main event might be longer, but something tells me that this is going to be the longest match of the night, because I think it's just going to go for a while. I think they're going to fight in the crowd. I think they're going to fight all over the place. And it's going to be awesome, because it's going to be a good match for a street fight. But one caveat to the whole thing, and that is that the winner of this match basically will be in line for another possible world title shot. If Jeff Hardy wins and Bobby Roode wins, technically Bobby Roode would probably be the first guy in line to challenge after Austin Aries got his rematch. If James Storm and Austin Aries win, since Austin Aries is basically going heel now, which, whatever, you could have James Storm versus Austin Aries. That'd be a heck of a match. I do think James Storm is going to win. And I think he's going to do it by smashing a beer bottle over Bobby Roode's head without the ref seeing it. And then, well, yeah. I think he's going to super kick him, and Bobby Roode's going to get out of it, and James Storm is going to just go over the edge and hit him with a beer bottle and win the match. So it's not going to be a clean win for James Storm, because it's a street fight. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. Of course, in a street fight, you don't need the ref. Actually, you can just do it legally, now that I think about it. Smash him with a beer bottle. Ball game. James Storm wins and ends the year-long feud. Main event time. Jeff Hardy, the winner of the Bound for Glory series, challenging Austin Aries for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Two schools of thought here. Austin Aries, you could keep him on the belt and have James Storm or somebody else challenge it. On the other hand, there was the rumor that Jeff Hardy's contract was close to being up. Jeff Hardy's redemption. Everything with Jeff Hardy, they really built this up. But do we really want Jeff Hardy being the champion again? It's a tough call. It's a very tough call. Personally, I think Jeff Hardy needs to put Austin Aries over. Personally. But as for every one of these things, I have a feeling that the company made a decision to put Jeff Hardy back on the belt. So, I will be pleasantly surprised if Jeff Hardy decides to put Austin Aries over. But I'm going to say Jeff Hardy beats Austin Aries and becomes the World Heavyweight Champion. If the Bully Ray thing goes south, maybe he gets a title shot if he's not too busy with Sting or with somebody else like that. So quick recap of my picks. Rob Van Dam wins via disqualification. So Zema Ion retains. Samoa Joe retains over Magnus. Joey Ryan beats Al Snow and gets his TNA contract. The Aces and Eights beat Sting and Bully Ray. Miss Tessmacher retains over Tara. James Storm beats Bobby Roode. New tag team champions in Chavo and Hernandez, and new world heavyweight champion in Jeff Hardy. Under the Wire 85 is where you can find this. I apologize for my 2-week absence from This Week in Wrestling. I apologize for that. I will start those again next week. We have Hell in a Cell in, I think it's 2 weeks. And then sometime this week, maybe after the pay-per-view or on Monday, I will give my review of the pay-per-view. Until then, have a good night. Enjoy the pay-per-view, and I'd love to see your comments on the bottom of this page. Take it easy.